Good. We have to.
Oops, sorry.
No problem. We need to pick off the next one. I think we have a few pieces of feedback to pick up from, but I'm not sure. I'll start that off with an email, I guess, and then we can carry on these calls.
Absolutely. So maybe we can make the 1st of July call a deep dive and analysis of spec reactions and people's own impressions. What do you think?
Sure. Good idea.
Now we have a whole bunch of people arriving.
Hi, Shane.
Hi there. Welcome on board. So I'm starting to share my screen as usual. I'm just going to jump into the antitrust policy notice, which we always like to display for a minute or two. We've got a bunch of people coming online. We're going to give it a couple of minutes because we expect not only a busy house, but also some great topics to cover. So I want to make sure people can arrive in time. Call out to Jake there from Adobe. Good to have you on the meeting this time. Hope all is well.
Hi, Shane. How's it going?
Pretty good. Pretty good indeed.
Good to be back.
We've got Michael from Siemens on the line. I think we're also going to get Oliver Fent. Michael, welcome. Andrew in the UK. Andrew, I see your law firm is growing and growing. I just saw a whole bunch of announcements. Congrats on that.
Yeah, there's a lot going on. Yeah, thanks, Shane.
You're super welcome. Sammy has joined as well from ARM. Gary O'Neill, our master of technical things, is on the line. Gary, myself, and Miriam just had a fantastic call doing a deep dive into the web app and questionnaire. That was a lot of fun.
Hi, there's Wendy from ARM who's also joined.
Hi, Wendy. Good to have you on the line as well.
So Shane, I'm trying to corral a few people from ARM to start joining this call. So I think Wendy and Matthew will hopefully be able to join on a more regular basis.
That would be fantastic, and it's excellent timing because we're beginning to get some feedback in on things like the new questionnaire and conformance, and it would be really valuable to have some fresh eyes to also dig into the questions, dig into how things are going, and help us make it all better.
And just for the record, I'm not planning to retire just yet.
What do you mean just yet? You're not allowed to retire. We need you here.
I mean, you can't get rid of me easily.
That's good news. Well, one thing that I'm looking forward to, and hopefully you and I can work on, is digging into the concept of the ARM case study. We've got the data now for the Toyota case study, so that'll come out later this month. But yeah, I'd love to do an ARM case study for people. I get a lot of questions about the journey to conformance and how people thought it through.
Absolutely. We're really in the final steps. As I can't remember whether I mentioned during this call or not, that we have rolled out training to over 5,000 ARM employees. So hopefully the journey is the end is in sight now.
What truly excites me, and ARM conformance is going to be a very important landmark for the project, but it's also exciting to be able to make a case study. Because, Toyota's doing a case study from pretty early on in the journey to conformance, and you're at the very end of it. And just day before yesterday, I had a phone call with a company in India that's doing a great job of conformance, but they did tell me that they would have loved to have seen some case studies on this, just to help them ground themselves. So, yeah, exciting.
Definitely. Great.
Now we've got two people on the line I can't identify. One is Seattle, so I'm guessing that might be David Rudin.
No, that is, it's actually Rose Judge. I'm from VMware, and I'm just calling in with my cell phone, so
Hey,
I'm originally from Seattle, but I'm in Portland.
welcome on board. Great to have you here today.
Thank you.
We have an exciting show today as we go through some very cool information from Siemens that ties into collaboration just emerging across Europe and Asia. Now, I see we've got someone from Palo Alto on the line. Just checking who that is.
This is Michael Rowan. I'm also VMware and actually also located in Portland.
Okay, so much for geolocation. And finally, we've got someone dialing in from Germany with a number 49622-1985-0414. I'm guessing that may be Oliver Fend.
It is Ozapel, OSIDL. Hello.
Ah, welcome, welcome. So a little bit later in the
And-
call today, OSADL will be giving us a glimpse of how they're doing the license checklists. Great to have you here.
Yeah, thank you. And Karen is also with me. So Karen and myself are listening, and we will later on give you some details on the project.
Perfect. And I see we also have Katharina Marake, where the geolocation says she's in Berlin, but it's hard to know because Katharina comes back and forth to Japan.
Yeah, geolocation is right today. I'm calling in from Berlin. Thank you, Shane.
Welcome on board. And Matthew just joined from ARM as well, I think. Though weirdly enough, it's showing San Jose, but that's okay. And Max, I see you're dialing in from Malmo. So, Max, I'm guessing wildly here, FOSS ID. Welcome on board.
Exactly right.
So it's great to have more of the FOSS ID team joining our calls. Oscar's been a relatively regular person, and we're looking forward to having you here moving ahead. Now, I'm going to dive into the project news because a little bit later we're going to have a presentation from Siemens, and that's going to be a relatively large presentation because it's a very big and important topic. So let's kick off. We've had the antitrust policy notice showing for a while. The roll call, we've got a lot of people on the line. I've now identified everyone that we hadn't initially identified, so we won't do a formal roll call. We will see the extra people coming online recorded by Uber Conference, and we'll do a full listing of participants in the minutes. For example, Hans just joined from Bosch. Welcome, Hans. Great to have you here today. All right, diving in, we're going to start with a project update for a couple of minutes. Then we move to Siemens on the open source compliance toolchain. That's going to be a major discussion taking place for around 30 minutes with Q&A. And then we're going to have OSADL presenting their open source license obligation checklists, a project they've been running in Germany for a couple of years now, I think. It's about 2 or 3 years, is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
And of course, on the tooling front, reversing here to Siemens, they've been working on open source tooling forever. Michael Jaeger is one of the very well-known faces for both SPDX and Fossology, and Michael gave a great talk on the first Monday of May, talking us through some of the work happening on Fossology project. And time permitting, he'll give us a little bit of information about SW360, a library which you can store scan results in. Okay, project update. So I had to cherry pick.
Thank you.
Oh, hey, Michael. I had to cherry pick on the project update because we have a lot of things which have been underway for a while and will be announced this week. Some of them will be our usual announcements about events and activities. For example, there'll be information about our next workshop in Korea. There'll be information about our workshops around some of the forthcoming events like Open Source Summit Japan. But I wanted to cherry pick on examples showing the pure business side and the economics growing around the OpenChain ecosystem. So I wanted to talk about some new areas where we're making large progress. For instance, we'll have 2 major conformance announcements from large Indian companies in the next week or 2. And this is interesting because while we had Lyra Infosystems, an Indian company, become OpenChain conformant last year, the two companies that are about to announce now represent a major step up in scale and into market penetration for India, an area where we really wanted to get some traction. And we're also seeing very large growth around our partner ecosystem. And this growth is based on companies and law firms that are deeply experienced in open source and have been involved in OpenChain, so they know us very well and we can rely on them. We'll be making announcements this week about legal partners in Germany, so 2 legal providers in Germany and 1 legal provider in China. In the next couple of weeks after that, we expect to have further announcements about geographies like Italy. This is very exciting because we do have a lot of companies looking at OpenChain ask us where can they get legal advice. So this is fitting a direct market need. It's also heartening that these law firms and other companies are adopting OpenChain into their solutions and also turning into advocates for it. Now, we just welcomed a German automation company called Meta Effect as a partner in Germany. This was announced just over a week ago. Meta Effect is an interesting one because they're very experienced in automation. They're very aware of things like Fossology and SW360, and we've had engagement with Meta Effect for a while. And they submitted to become an OpenChain partner when it became very clear that automation in our ecosystem and open source tools for automation was becoming more important. And we do expect to make a major tooling party announcement on Wednesday about the first tooling company becoming an OpenChain partner. And this is exciting for us because, as you all know, this is a user-driven project. User companies building something for user companies, but we've had a lot of people asking questions about what vendors in commercial automation, what tooling companies might be fully up on OpenChain. And we've informally told people about companies that we know who are aware of OpenChain, but this will be the first time that we have an actual official OpenChain partner that people can easily find. All right, so this is all very exciting stuff, and it's all based around increased maturity of our ecosystem. More companies are becoming conformant, more companies are asking for support. We're seeing the development of legal providers across key geographies, and we're seeing the growth of OpenChain into the wider area of providers globally who offer open source compliance. And this follows the path that we've set for a long time. We're exactly on track where we want to be. Okay, so you can expect a swarm of announcements about events, about activities, and about interesting contributions, both to help us get better with the specification, better with the conformance, and better with our reference material. That's coming next. That will be in an update in our next call, because this call we have to move on and we have to begin talking about something very interesting at Siemens. I just want to check, is Oliver on the line yet? Oh wow, we've had a whole bunch of people join. Okay, so I'm going to just pause here and check who's here. I see Michael just unmuted, and I know you're going to confirm, I think, that Oliver's there, but I can see Oliver, so that's fine. Hi, Oliver.
Yes, yeah. And hi Shane. So finally I managed it to be able to speak and to hear something. So Shane, thank you. Before I want to do this short presentation, is one question regarding this tooling partner. What can you disclose already some information, or perhaps repeat some information, because I was only able to join in for
sure,
a few seconds ago.
Okay, so we have a commercial tooling vendor who's been involved in the OpenChain ecosystem for quite a while, and they'll be announced as one of the OpenChain partners. So it's adjacent to things like the law firms we're announcing. It's adjacent to things like the automation companies we're announcing. So it'll be a provider who does open source scanning, and it means that they'll be essentially including OpenChain into their story of solution provision.
Oh, okay.
And of course, with our partner,
so thank you.
Yeah, and with our partner program, of course, we put a a certain requirement that companies positively advocate OpenChain, not just their product, but also the project. So that's heartening. Every partner we get pushes our message further.
Okay.
Now,
I see.
Yeah. I just wanted to confirm a couple of people on the line, Oliver, before I hand over to you. Is that okay?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, so I see we've got Alan from WDC on the line, but we've got someone in from Portland. I'm not sure who that is. It's definitely not our two people from VMware in Portland because they're reading in Seattle and Palo Alto. Could you identify yourself with the number starting 503?
Oh, is that me?
Yes, that's you. Hello.
Oh, hi. I'm Nisha. I work at VMware and with the intern.
Wonderful.
And I work with some folks here on the call know me through SPDX.
It's absolutely brilliant to have you here today. Now we also have someone.
Yeah, I have.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Nisha.
Yeah, so I was going to introduce Rose Judge, who will be working with me on terms. And she's the other 503 number.
Perfect. Great to have you here. Now, I see we also have someone 858 reading in San Diego. I'm guessing this is either Jim Hutchinson or Nathan. They're staying secret. All right, we'll find out who you are later because we have to zoom over to Oliver. Oliver, would you like me to hand over for SlideShare to you? You're muted, Oliver, so I'm going to unmute.
Yeah.
Hi.
So you mean that I should share the slides?
Yes, or I can display your slides and I can move on. You can just tell me to move to next slide.
So I would prefer the second option. Otherwise,
Perfect.
we would lose another couple of minutes.
All right, we're ready to go. Your slides are showing.
Okay, thank you, Shane. So perhaps you can move to the next slide already. Yeah, so I have prepared a small presentation about an open source compliance toolchain, starting with the general description and then the big picture and specific elements, and last but not least, a slide with some links in the internet. So that's the overall structure. I think it's about 10 minutes without any question. But if you have any question or any comment, please do not hesitate and put it directly during this short presentation. Perhaps you can move on.
Here we are.
Yeah, so why open source compliance toolchain and why the open source way? I think perhaps when you have listened to one of my talks before, you had already an idea why I'm so keen on this kind of topic, because compliance is, at least in Germany, and I believe in all other countries also which have some kind of copyright act, compliance to the Copyright Act is required by law. So there is no, let's say, excuse of not doing it. We have to do this because it's required by law. We as Siemens and probably all others who are working at OpenChain or in the OpenChain ecosystem, we all have a huge network of suppliers, and the deliverables must be license compliant, which we receive from our suppliers. No matter whether we keep this as an internal infrastructure or whether we integrate their deliverables into our product solution services and what else, and provide this then as a part of our offering to external customers. In former times, the compliance workflow there wasn't. It was not that big disadvantage if it was a little bit offline, because in former times, so years ago, we had perhaps other release cycles than today. Today, I think we cannot afford an offline process anymore.
Well, at least it's Jim Hutchison. That could be Nathan as well.
Pardon?
I think we had a sound artifact there based on someone talking earlier, and it just arrived by accident.
Okay, so not from the space outside. So, as I said, I think we cannot afford anymore an offline process. We have to integrate the compliance workflow into the CI/CD toolchain. So, talking about DevOps, so we also need to integrate all these compliance tasks into the DevOps scenario. Otherwise, we will not be able to provide the products or solutions as we are required to do. And that's also very important for big companies, that the tools which provide certain functionality to the compliance workflow, or in respect to the compliance workflow, they have to be orchestrable, which means they have to be, or it must be able to plug them into an existing setup, and they, without any big, let's say, customization scenarios or customization development stuff, because and also in future we probably have the need of integrating more and more different tools and different functionality. And of course, the budget for license compliance work is limited. So at least my budget is limited. Probably also the budget of all other persons in charge of license compliance is limited. And we have, as a large company, we have an installed legacy, which means there is no greenfield. So if you come to a big enterprise like Siemens, you will for sure find all tools which are more or less in the compliance market, and what we need is at least when we want to combine different or new tools in this existing landscape, there need to be the APIs, the procedure, all need to be available in order to be able to plug new tools into this existing legacy thing. Otherwise, we will not be able to, let's say, to do a migration from one tool generation to the other tool generation, and perhaps to the future tool generation. So, in a nutshell, in my opinion, this only can be managed via an open source based compliance toolchain, which means that the elements which make this toolchain in the end have to be, in my opinion, licensed on an open source compliant license. And perhaps, Shane, you can go to the next slide. There is there's a big picture which of course does not really reflect. Whoops. Yeah. The project Sharing Creates Value, which I have created, I think, 4 years ago. Initially with the objective to provide here compliance artifacts which are generated during the compliance work, like best practices or license analysis files or license analysis documents of certain open source packages. In this repo, we have also another kind of activity for at least more than 1.5 years right now, which is concerned with the open source compliance workflow and the functional blocks which are needed in order to realize an open source compliance toolchain. And we have started with user scenarios, and currently we are working on other user scenarios and also on a data model, because we have said that the data model, or at least the data which are transferred via several tools, need to be defined. Otherwise, plug and play probably is not really possible. And if you are interested, you can check out this open source project at Open Source Compliance Sharing Creates Value. Perhaps you can go to the next picture. Shape.
It should be showing now.
Yeah. So this is the big picture, and you know, you probably might think, okay, this is let's say picture for persons in the kindergarten. This picture is on purpose so modeled in an abstract way. So these rectangles define the functionality, like dependency resolver. You know, you have perhaps a lot of dependencies, especially in JavaScript. Based applications, you might end up with hundreds of dependencies. Where you are facing the delivery of a Docker container or another container, and you need to resolve the content of this container. Or you have a binary, and you should perhaps in a reverse engineering way analyze what are the ingredients of this binary. Of course, you need other functionalities, like when you have a dependency resolver, you might also need or have the need of a source package downloader, because as I said, this should be all automated, and imagine you cannot, let's say, or this is simply not possible, that you have this person sitting somewhere downloading source packages from the internet in order to prepare the compliance work. This needs to be automated. So this is then the functionality of a source package downloader. You have also perhaps already internally installed a license obligation database, so dealing with all the where you have together probably with your legal team defined, okay, what to-dos have to be done when I'm using a GPL version 2 license software package in my deliverable to an external customer. And below here you have functionality like license and copyright scanner. So this is at least a tool which...
Thank you for calling. Please wait while we transfer your call to the next available representative.
I think someone has got some background sounds there.
Yeah, very nice.
That's calmed down. So over to you again.
So this license and copyright scanner, a functionality which searches in source code files or in files for license and copyright notices. Component analysis service, this is, or at least someone might know this also as a plagiarism scanner, so searching for code snippets, for integrated code snippets into own product code. The question is how long this is still required. Policy checker, so you might have a company policy. I know it at least for, in some cases, there's a policy at a certain company which says, if possible, we want to avoid open source licenses which define the jurisdiction to US. So why? I do not know. So these are kind of policies, and you have then in the end obligation fulfillment. This directly correlates to the obligation license obligation database, because you are in a product, or before launching, making a product market available, you have to say, okay, I fulfill this obligation, for example, of the GPL version 2, to provide the source code in my special product. I always provide the source code directly with binary and not with the written offer. So this is more or less this is the meaning behind this obligation fulfillment functionality. And last but not least, you have the FOSS bundle compliance generator, so this functionality which automatically creates the source packages which have to be delivered, and you have as a final step this compliance artifact consistency checking functionality, which does mean that you have a source code bundle, you have a product or a service which you want to offer, and you have the open source disclosure document, and everything has to be consistent. So these are, or is the description of all these functional blocks, and of course you need an integration layer or API or data or let's say REST API with defined data structures in order to be able to plug this into your own CI/CD infrastructure, and in order to produce outbound compliant software. On the other hand, you might also have the need that you, let's say, have patches on open source packages, and you need also an automated, or at least very automated way in order to provide contributions back to the public open source projects in case of bug fixes, patches, and small function enhancements. So that's more or less the big picture. Perhaps there's something missing. If there's a functionality missing, I would be happy to receive your comments on that, so that I can add this functionality. In the next slide, I have tried to put here some already existing tools. Of course, I have concentrated, as you might have expected, on Fossology and SW360 and SW360 antenna. So there are already a lot of existing components there. I think And I could also have here added Turn as container content resolver, but since Turn is not really active working in this kind of open source project, as I have said, sharing creates value. I did not mention it here. Yeah, that's it. So there are some still white spots in an open source based open source compliance toolchain, like component analysis service. Of course, there's no snippet scanner and an open source compliant license yet. And also this compliance artifact consistency checker is not existing yet. These are still some white spots which have to be or should be available on an open source compliant license. And that's it. So perhaps you can go to the next slide, Shane. Yeah. So the conclusion and as I said in the beginning, the current areas of work define and describe the most relevant use cases. We have already a lot of use cases available. We are working actively on the data model. The current work is concerning license obligation fulfillment, so which kind of data shall be available in or shall be in the data model present in order to model this kind of functionality. And last but not least, to implement use cases. And if you are interested in at least participating or listening to this activity, I would be happy to receive an email from you so that you can be added to the compliance tooling mailing list and participate in the discussion and bring the entire effort one or two steps further. That's it. Thank you for your attention. And if there are questions, I will be happy to answer them if I can.
Oliver, thank you so much. And just to set context to everyone, one reason that this particular presentation is so exciting and so important is that in Japan, the Japan Work Group is beginning to work on tooling to align with what Siemens and Bosch are up to. So we've got companies like Fujitsu, Toshiba, and Hitachi. They use Fossology today. They're supporting a variant of SPDX, and they're looking to have a single reference open source compliance tool chain as a concept. So, Oliver, it strikes me that the OpenChain project may have enough participants to bring this reference tool chain to life, and perhaps even to have it pre-configured or turnkey so suppliers could use it. Would you agree with that assertion? Do you think that's accurate?
I fully agree, Shane. Yeah, I would say this the OpenChain ecosystem is by far the best to bring this into life, because we all have the same needs. So we have a lot of suppliers. OpenChain was created because we have obviously sometimes difficulties with our suppliers, or not difficulties with our suppliers, but in the compliance with the compliance artifacts they are delivering from time to time. So I think it would be really a great event to work on this issue further. Yeah.
I had a conversation with some major companies in China as well, and they're very interested in contributing to this. So I think we're onto something here, Oliver. Now, I brought everyone together, and I wanted this to be front and center because our specification is the center. Our self-certification is vital. But time and time again, we've said automation is necessary. And open source tooling for open source compliance seems to be the best baseline reference we could possibly create. Now, does anyone have any comments or questions?
No.
I have one.
Ah, yes, go ahead.
Yeah. Yeah, would pathology or scan code fall into the binary analyzer portion? This is a very noob question because I do not know how these tools work.
So perhaps, Shane, you can go one slide back.
Sure, of course.
Pathology and scan code are in this functional block area, which I call license and copyright scanner. They are not capable of identifying code snippets copied from an open source or another project and pasted into own product code without flagging it as an integration of third-party software. So so pathology, so you can say here pathology or scan code. They serve at least in this big picture context the same functionality.
And I believe binary analysis is a bit of a blank spot for us now. There was a tool, binary analysis tool, but that is now defunct. However, Armine Hamel, the creator of the original binary analysis tool, tells me that he's actively working on a next generation open source binary analysis tool.
Yes, and there's lot of development there, as far as I know, because Armine and his brother are working on this BANG, so it's called Binary Analysis Next Generation. It's also on GitHub and licensed under Apache 2, as far as I remember.
Now, this is a question to our friends from VMware. Turn is a container compliance scanner. To some degree, could that container compliance scanner fit into our the blank space at the top, second from the left, container content resolver? That sounds like that might be Turn.
Yeah, I think that is really what Turn does. In fact, one can say that it is a conduit for the other components to get access to a container image. Honestly, Turn would not be needed if there was a way of integrating this whole pipeline for each of the layers that a container produces, or a container contains, or even a single layer. So basically, tools like Docker only become the packaging aspect of the container, not the actual building part. But yeah, I think it fits reasonably well in that content resolver part.
And of course, a very good point of yours that if our whole workflow to create what will go in the container is nice and smooth, there's no need to check the container per se. But because at the moment a lot of containers are quite messy, it will take a while for the beginning workflow to flow through until we get to that stage. So I'm quite excited about working with you and working with Turn. And this leaves basically only 2 points: component analysis service and compliance artifact consistency, unresolved by open source tooling today. So it sounds like we have a lot potentially filled in.
Yes, Shane. We only need to define, let's say, the offered. If you talk in technology, the offered REST services by all these tools, and then probably only write a little bit glue code for triggering all these interfaces, and then we can easily plug these different pieces into the existing CI/CD tool chain. Would be really great. And to be honest, and here probably Alexios might disagree. The question how long how long this component analysis service is still required as a mandatory step, because I think our or at least the devs are, or their awareness about open source and IP rights and Copyright Act might also increase, so that this is not really, in the long run, not really a mandatory thing anymore for many products, because the people who are developing software are educated in a way that they know what they can do and they know what they don't can do, and they do not things that they aren't allowed to do. Yeah.
There's
Oliver,
go ahead.
Sorry, Oliver, it's Sammy. Can I just sort of check whether the expectation is that this would be file level compliance, or are we talking package level compliance? Because I think there is a vast amount of work if we're going down to file level.
So at least the target is file level, Sami, and we are thinking about ways how to reduce here also the manual work to the minimum. So if we are talking about this, we are explicitly now talking about, let's say, fossology. How can we further develop fossology in a way, or scan code? But I can't talk about scan code because I'm not using this in my daily work. So please forgive me that I can't talk about scan code. So, but in regard of fossology, I would say there should be, or we are thinking about how to implement means that, let's say, for example, if you have or if you trust a certain software, for example, for all permissive licenses identified, you simply say, okay, the tool is right. I do not recheck any MIT license finding because I think the tool is right. These things are we thinking about in order to reduce the manual work.
Yeah, so I agree with you. I think for me to have a project like this really successful, I think we have to be realistic about. Perhaps initially we say, okay, we are going to focus on package level compliance because that's probably achievable, and then you tweak and say, okay, we're now going to go. As a target to improve on that, to go into file level. My worry with starting with file level, it makes that integration virtually impossible because you're going to hit so many different corners. and at least with a bit of a successful story in terms of getting the package off the ground, it then becomes easier to focus on how can you tweak that further to accomplish the file level. And I agree with you. The analysis with Fossology to sort of say, okay, if the identification is all permissive licenses, and you're providing part of your policies that you're providing the source code anyway, then that becomes much easier in terms of issuing the compliance. So that's an easy one to focus on.
Yeah. Actually, I think it's not that bad. So, in the current state, we're almost there in file level. Oliver's comment before on the box of component analysis service was actually, a reference to snippets and going inside each file and stuff like that, right? Which I agree we're still far ahead. And as Oliver commented, education and our developers are becoming better, and that's one way that OpenChain, will help. So at some point we'll make a decision that, definitely whoever is OpenChain compliant knows about this stuff and we trust them. So we don't need to go search for, snippets that people put there without any reference to original source and stuff like that. And at that point we can,
That's right. So again, I agree with you. I think the expectation is that you're generally dealing with very highly educated engineers who and developers who generally, if you provide the facts to them, they're good at following the policies once they understand why that policy is there and what the associated risks. So I totally agree with that approach. I think my concern with regards to the file level, using tools such as Fossology is great to do the scanning and at file level, but the identification is very much a time-consuming task because if you're talking about thousands and thousands of lines of code, it takes a long time to complete the identification for one package. So I'm sort of being realistic about the scalability. If you go from the onset saying the target is file level from day one.
Sorry, Sami, I was talking without unmuting. So I think there is no obstacle for you to come from the other end. So saying, let's check how we can achieve this integrated compliance tool chain. For our approach with a package level license and copyright analysis. So you for this approach you would say, okay, I need still something on which identifies me the copyright holder and the main license or the license which is flagged for the package. So you would remove here from this left-hand lower row Fossology and write the tool you are using if there's an open source tool available, or if there is perhaps a commercial tool available. You could say, that's my current infrastructure, and I need a so-called integration or data layer of this existing tool, so that I will be able to build a more automated thing.
No, we are using technology, Oliver. So again, I think it's something that you said from the beginning. At the beginning, when you are. You said sort of dealing with the legacy. I think today, if I look around ARM as a company, I think there's tons of open source that's already in use within ARM that is very difficult to pinpoint and identify all the file level information. For new stuff, we are very clear about what we put as requirements on users to carry out that identification. But I think for legacy stuff, it's virtually impossible to track everything. As the supply chain improves and become more conformant with projects such as OpenChain, it's easier because you can say, well, this organization is OpenChain conformant. I'm getting what I'm getting there. So over time, I think it becomes less of a problem.
May I step in here, Hans from Bosch? You're just highlighting a very important point. It's building up a chain of trust. Meaning you can trust on that the other people know, meaning other people are also your suppliers, know what they're doing. So they hand over you an artifact. And speed is important, so you have to have this artifact very fast in your blue area here, in this artifact repository build tools. It must be in there pretty fast. So the key for having a successful and running tool is that you have a kind of data model which allows you to import and export to various formats. And we tried to set up Software 360 within Bosch, and it was really a pain. And in the end, many people stepped out because they were not willing to agree on a common data structure. And if you want to run this different companies, different big companies, I think this is the biggest challenge, to have a kind of unique structure, or at least a format where you can exchange data fast and efficient. Because I do not want to scan code which my supplier already audited, and because my supplier is OpenChain compliant, I do not want to check it again. Maybe I make a sample check, but normally I would take it over and say, I trust you, this is my trust chain, and then I develop and over to my customers. So this is the idea. So for me, the biggest problem here is not setting up the tools or putting up the glue between the tools to have it running on a server. For me, the biggest challenge is to have a data structure which is robust, to run inside your company in an efficient way, and also allows you to export, import data.
Okay, data, I agree, Hans, that the data are the crucial part, or the services which are offer the data. And due to this, we are working on this data model, and I think we have already made some good progress. Of course, there's not everything there, and we have to further work on this, but at least you will have a source available which really says this is a publicly available data model which implements the possibility to have a full feature, full automated compliance workflow. Yeah? If you are then agreeing on this kind of data, I think that's up to the company. So I know what you probably have faced for. Which problems you have probably faced, because in companies or in big companies, this not invented here syndrome is very, very popular. Yeah, and if we call this, for example, constraint as a superclass for obligation, risk, and other things, your engineers might come up with. This is a very bad name. So yeah, but at least you have a blueprint.
Yeah, no, I agree. I don't want to diminish. Look, I totally, and Oliver, that I'm all for supporting an integrated compliance tool chain. I think in a way, the reason why I mentioned what I mentioned is I'm talking about scalability. Until we have that trusted supply chain, I think, very realistically, it will take a very long time. It will take organizations and all companies, certainly we do as a company for our own projects that we develop. We insist on having consistent license information such as SPDX tagging of all the files. So it paves the way for the future. And until such time that the majority of the code out there is from a trusted supplier, we will continue to encounter issues with lack of trust in the supply chain for some time to come. Because the reality is there's quite a lot of code out there that is difficult to assess what the licenses that are applicable at file level, I should say. So that's where I'm coming from.
Yeah, I agree to this. So.
And we're recording this for our Japanese contingent because not only Toshiba, Hitachi, and Fujitsu, they're in deployment with Fossology, but there's about 20 companies looking to align behind what we're cooking up here. Yeah.
Okay.
And they're using SPDX as their interchange format. They're using a light variant. They call it SPDX Lite, which they're also syncing with the SPDX project on. So it's looking like we might end up with a tool chain, which, as to Sammy's point, there might be a very simple default on packages, and then you can switch it to files, and then you can switch it to snippets using SPDX for integration. So I've been bold and brave about this. When, for instance, commercial tool vendors have approached me, I've said, this is cooking. So whatever you do, it's going to have to work well with the reference toolchain we're making. It's going to have to work well probably with the reference interchange format, SPDX, and be prepared for things like the Japanese companies are talking about having reference databases under open licenses to give them the suppliers the tooling and a database to get them started.
Cool, that's great.
Yeah, so this call is being recorded for our Japanese team, and what we can expect is asymmetric feedback here. They're probably going to talk about it on the third Monday call, which is unsuitable for Europe. And yeah. Now we're running very tight on time. In fact, some people might have to drop off the call because we hit the hour, but I'm recording this, and it will be presented to the general mailing list so everyone can view a video of what we did here or listen to an audio call. Oliver, thank you so much. This is one of the most important projects we've got rolling.
Thank you, Shane, for giving me the opportunity to present this here. And to the others, I wish you a nice day or a nice evening, depending on the time zone you are.
And we do have one more presentation before we wrap up today. So if you can't stay on, it's okay. You can watch the video of this later. But we do have OSADL to talk about their checklist project. So I'd like to hand it over to the OSADL team. You gave me 2 slides. We're on the first slide right now, and I can move to the other slide at your choice of time. Are you ready to give people an intro?
Yes, we are.
The floor is
okay,
yours.
Go ahead. Do you hear me?
Yes, perfectly.
Okay. So as we all know, open source licenses are a subgroup of licenses with some degree properties. The rights are pretty much similar. And we let people who decided that a license is a kind of an open source license decide whether they are similar enough to be called open source license. But the obligations are very different. And with every new license created by someone, a new set of obligations, a little bit different from what we had before may occur. So we feel that, as we know, that all license obligations must, of course, be fulfilled. The challenge is to understand the obligation. The challenge is to analyze what exactly the obligations are and to make sure they are fulfilled. And then we look at the license and we saw they are written by native English, by native Americans, by not native speakers of all over the world, using different terms, using different descriptions, using different ways of how to describe of how a license obligation needs to be fulfilled, all different. And it is nearly impossible to tell your QA people, just read the license and do what the license says. You need to be a legal expert. You need to be a lawyer in order to really understand what the obligations are. And in addition, we need to check the compatibility. So we saw that what we need first is to define a common, what we call obligation language. So to transfer all the differently written language licenses into a common language. And then to encode them with the help of lawyers, of legal experts, seek feedback, and validate the feedback, improve the quality, and finally publish it. And since we went through all 5 steps now, and the project is pretty complete, we wanted to let you know where we are, and we would like to proceed to the next slide, please.
Of course. The next slide is up.
Okay. So the easiest thing is a license obligation, which we call you must. The next thing is a license permission. You should a license prohibition. You must not. And since you must or you must not must be followed by a verb, we created a list of actions, of very typical actions that may occur in a license. And then, of course, you must do something needs to say to what you need to do it. So, for example, if you need to forward something, then we must say what to forward. And this is why we need terms. So we have normally a number of single lines starting with you must or you must not, be followed by an action and followed by a term. We have about 10 language elements, about 20 actions, and about 80 terms. In addition, we use some language elements for use cases and compatibility and patents and so on. And we created a graphical user interface, an internet interface, kind of an IDE, where lawyers and users and everybody are invited to look at it, to see how it was done, and to help us to improve it. And I should say that at this point, our hero is Till Jäger. Till did most of the work. He helped us to encode currently 61 licenses into our language. And then we hope to receive feedback from the outside world in order to make it more international, to make it more agreed by everybody who is concerned with license obligations. And then we also started to write open source policies so that company can take this list and integrate it into the company's policy. Today we have a community of about 200 subscribers of the platform, and we are a little disappointed that most people take and very few people give. So we have probably less than 20 feedback mails received over the 3 years. So we hope that we need to increase our community to get more feedback. And so finally, I would like to invite everybody who is interested to join in and to go through these license obligations checklist and to check it out and to write us whenever you feel something could be made better. The IDE is available by login protection only, so please write to office@osada.org and we will send you the login data. But the use of the raw data is public. Everybody can download them and integrate them into scan tools or whatever. But the interface to be used is still not public because we were afraid that our disclaimer may not be enough and people may take this as legal advice, and we would like to make sure that this is not legal advice. So it's less than 10 minutes and I'm through. Please ask your questions.
Okay. May I ask immediately a question?
Go ahead.
Carsten, thank you very much, and thank you for the effort. It's really a great effort. When I transferred this information that the license checklists are publicly available right now, I immediately got the feedback, and why isn't it on GitHub so that we can make pull requests or something like that when we see perhaps a missing thing or perhaps there should be a phrase formulated in another way. Are you intending to do this to transfer the entire project on GitHub to make all the issues and all the other things also transparent? And what's your opinion about that?
Well, yeah, we could do so. So for the last 3 years, nobody ever asked us. So I think that we have provided a feedback mechanism that would work. If you are not the first one who asked him to put it on GitHub, and there's a certain probability that lawyers are going to use GitHub and making requests, then yes, well, why not? We could do it. So for the time being, I'm not sure that this is the reason. Whenever I talk to lawyers why they don't provide feedback, they said because we don't have our insurance high enough to do so. So I think this is another world of how to interact. But we could do so, yeah, why not?
Yeah, this was only a question I got immediately when I made.
What is do you think that the mechanism per se is so much worse what we have today? I mean, it is just you could click on it and you could write us, and then we will immediately integrate us, and it's transparent. And I got feedback from lawyers, and lawyers told me they prefer this way. But I mean, we could try to make it the other way around. Why not?
It would be also interesting because on GitHub there's the Finos project. I don't know if you're familiar with this one.
Yeah.
So then we have a shootout or a divinistic approach. Which approach is better? Let Darwin choose.
Yeah, it's not about better or not. It's about legal quality. And
this means better, meaning this is also a kind of unique selling point. I'm also appreciating the idea of going on GitHub.
Good.
Yeah, the has done GitHub for a while for the licenses. It's actually worked quite well for them. It hasn't solved the problem of increase. We still want more people to contribute, so it didn't solve that issue, but it did work really well in terms of collaboration and transparency.
Please be aware, GitHub is a great tool, but if you use the tool at the OSADL website, you have the interactive part of it. And the interactive part will probably not easily to be transferred to a GitHub project. So perhaps you can have both, but who's interested in the project, I recommend to at least have a starting point in the OSADL website to look how it looks interactively.
Yeah, maybe we can have both. Maybe we can continue with our interface and then have in parallel the repository at GitHub. So let's try. Let's think about it. So we haven't seen this before. So maybe we can mix. Maybe we can mix these two approaches. But I really would like to agree on this command. Please join. Please have a look. Look at how it works. How we started to make the possible ambiguities transparent of how we try to, for example, provide text templates to fulfill license obligations, written offers, and so on. So please have a look also at the compatibility thing and have a look of how we argue and how we do so, and then let's try how to transfer it. But I don't think to transfer it and not knowing of what is the result of this transfer is a bit difficult. So I would really appreciate many of you to just encourage you, go to the website, have a look, click around, and look and feel and try out how it works, and then let us know of how it could be improved. But the main point is that encoding was much easier. So when we started the project, we were afraid that encoding is such a huge work and we would never be able to do so. But this was much faster. Also, really, the credit goes to Till Jäger. He did a wonderful job. So the encoding was much faster, much better. But the gaining the feedback, this was the hardest part. We tried so much to convince people, please provide feedback. But obviously, it is so difficult for a lawyer to provide an opinion in a way of how we do it. So I think we need to think of how to get legal experts' opinion, to get lawyers' opinions, without bringing it in a danger of someone calling for damages.
And that touches on something which is, very much going to come up with companies looking at this, especially U.S. companies. Is also why, for example, OpenChain project itself would not be hosting license checklists. But I think it's an initiative that's interesting, and I just wanted to let you know that quite a few Japanese companies are interested in this. In Japan, there's a lot more freedom to contribute this type of information reference data than in the United States. So
we have collaboration with Hitachi.
Yeah, they were very enthusiastic when they first found out about this.
Akira Shirai was here, and we had discussion with him, and still the Japanese thing is in Japanese, and we need to translate it to English, and this may be somewhat of a hurdle, but there's some ongoing discussion with Akira Shirai to integrate these two things.
It's interesting, and I think it was very good to bring it to people's radar today. Thank you so much for running through it. Does anyone have a last question on this?
Actually, I would say that, the value of this effort is on the quality, right, that we provide. So it's actually good that, you want feedback from qualified lawyers, right? And opening it up in GitHub means that you will be getting lots of comments by people who may not be completely qualified to make comments, and you should have a more rigorous process of, dealing with feedback. And we have seen it, in SPDX, legal discussions. It's one thing happening in the mailing list, and it's another thing when you just open to everyone on GitHub, and it adds a little load. Let's call it like that.
Okay, thank you.
And we touched on some interesting points here today. And so, some people might be thinking, well, OpenChain is a standard. Why are we talking about tooling? Why are we, referencing projects creating different types of reference material? And the answer is that OpenChain as a standard is now becoming pretty mature as a de facto industry standard. And we're seeing a lot of pickup. We're seeing companies become conformant. We're seeing companies prep for their supply chain to adopt this. And now we're at the stage where people are asking, okay, so we know that we're going to have to address inflection points, inbound, internal, and outbound. How do we do stuff like automate those inflection points? And that's precisely where this tooling discussion initiated by Oliver and all of the hard work by Michael at Siemens is so important. And we're looking forward to having the Japanese contingent highlight their work later this month, which we will share via recording. And again, OSADL's work is fulfilling a need and an area of interest for companies in Europe and in Asia. And a lot of people are asking for reference material in this space. It's not something that we do, but it is something that people are doing. So it's worth letting you know that these things are unfolding. And we will keep having briefings about interesting items for the OpenChain ecosystem as we go forward. What we have to do now as a project is work on implementation and making it easier for companies to put the right things into the inflection points so that compliance happens. Thank you everyone for your time. Thank you for your patience. And of course, we are very excited to help get the tooling underway. And we're very happy for people to send questions to everyone on this call, on our mailing list, and to participate in our next call, our first Monday of July call. Or if you're in the US and Japan, to participate on our third Monday call in June. So that's it. Thank you all. I'll put the video up soon, and have a great day.
Thank you, Shane.
Thanks, Shane. Thank you, Shane. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.